Hey y'all, what's going on? I've got another replay for you between two top players. In the top left, reclaiming his #1 spot. In the blue, we have MiD, member of Good Game, former member of Korea #1. In the bottom right, we've got Bongkure, who sits at #6 with the red pieces. Also Good Game member, also former Korea #1 member. Bongkure going for a pretty traditional opener, worker first, and then the gas goes down, more workers behind it. MiD, however, going for a more modern approach, going all the way to 10 workers. That 11th worker is the one that lays down the gas. If you don't need the gas immediately, it is a huge bonus to your economy. Your one base mineral intake becomes maximum pretty quickly. It's also the quickest way to get to double gas, which MiD opts to go for. Now, Bongkure's first gas is already complete. He is already mining from it. The check and the balance here is that while Bongkure will be able to get gas units or an owl out on the map a few seconds earlier, MiD is going to have a greater bank of minerals and is going to be at full saturation quicker than Bongkure, and is also going to be able to get this first barracks up a little bit quicker. If you like to apply pressure early and you're confident in your ability to defend, you're not scared of getting rushed or cheesed, this is a great opener. MiD now opting to send out a lone bat. I like this move. This is something I used to do a lot whenever I had bats in my main deck. A bat is cheaper than an owl, so you can naturally get it out sooner. You send it straight to your enemy's natural, and if they go for an expansion, that bat will be able to snipe down that worker, delaying them even farther. It's really good value. It puts a delay on your enemy. Anyways, back home, it looks like MiD's going to go down for an expansion, and Bongkure is going to be able to scout it. We'll see how he responds. MiD does have an owl out on the map. I guess with this skin pack, it would be an eagle. Bat making his way across. A high priest coming out. I think high priests are really underrated. Their buff, like it's kind of an area buff where they can buff everyone's defense around them, is really strong. It looks like, though, Bongkure is going to annoyingly kill MiD's worker that was building this castle, delaying him for maybe 2 seconds. Another worker was already coming down. MiD could have just stopped the building and walked away and saved the worker. It's not a huge difference, but you're getting delayed anyways, so you could have paused the building, saved the 40 minerals, increased your mining rate by not having to wait for another worker to build. Anyways, Bat doing some scouting realizes that Bongkure didn't go for that space up top, which most players do, so he's going to go scout the bottom. He does see some Vikings moving out, as well as a worker. MiD putting a Hellgate down. This is kind of a MiD move of putting that Hellgate out of vision of the enemy, but Bongkure is going to see it. Those two Vikings should be able to clean that up. But a win for MiD as the worker does go down. Bongkure is going to have to cancel that castle, delaying his expansion. But back at the top of the map, Bongkure is continuing to push. MiD having to fight with some workers. Wolf Riders are out. High Priest is going to activate that shield, going to give him a little bit of extra life to hold on. This fight doesn't look like it's going too well for MiD, though. Both players are strapped for gas, but they are both playing with temptation. So we'll have to see if this comes into play. It does look like MiD did tempt one of these Vikings away. He probably could have sent it into the mineral line and did some really good damage. But he's probably feeling like it's dire back at home and needs to get back there, and I tend to agree. These swordsmen, though, are putting in work, tanking for the Wolf Riders, who can put in a good amount of damage. Bongkure down to just 1 tank, 1 Viking. It looks like MiD's going to hold this just fine, and while it feels like he should be ahead, remember that Bongkure never put an expansion down, so all MiD has to do is rebuild workers. Bongkure is going to have to save up, put a castle down, and then start building workers. Bongkure is going to have to play some defense, and looking at the minimap, it does look like a castle does go down for Bongkure, but MiD's bat is still putting in work, kills another worker, delaying that expansion even more. We'll see if he can force a cancel here, but it looks like MiD does pull away, and instinctively probably correct because some snipers are coming out and they're going to be able to take care of that bat pretty easily. Bongkure was marching up the left side, decides to pull it on home as he sees that MiD is going on the attack. MiD splitting off his army a little bit to the right side, does hit that lookout tower, probably purposefully, but sometimes I like to try to avoid it because your opponent can tell if you are looking at it. Again, MiD putting down that Hellgate. He likes to put it outside of the vision because he wants a few of those minions to spawn before attacking rather than having them come out one by one, where it's really easy for the opponent to be able to pick them off. Bongkure putting down a defensive recall, sending those units back to the natural, which still isn't complete. He's going to try to defend it while mid goes in for an attack here. With recall on cooldown, I feel like mid should be able to handle this just fine, and it looks like he's going to also focus down that worker, delaying the expansion even longer. I've been on the other side of this, and it really, really sucks. You feel like you can never get out of one base. Your opponent just keeps putting pressure, keeps denying, and yeah, it sucks. Anyway, some tanks come out for Bongkure. They're going to position themselves on the high ground, be able to put in quite a lot of damage, and with that one Viking coming out, some more Vikings reinforce. It looks like Bongkure is going to be able to push mid back for now, finally get a worker down there, and we'll see if the expansion does come up. Mid pretty much completely saturated on his natural. The third is going up right now, more units being rallied across the map. The economy is starting to look really nice for mid, but Bongkure does have those tanks that can trade really well. Mid looking like he's scouting now to see if Bonkure's going for the third. Hellgate going down on the high ground, but the swordsman's going to spot it and start chipping away at it. This natural here that Bongkure has is really kind of easy to defend because you have to attack through a corridor. So whenever I'm on this map, I usually like to have units up top to where I can draw his army out and then I can attack down the ramp while I'm hitting the front at the same time. Doesn't look like mid's going to have that favorable of an angle here. Bongkure using that corridor to his advantage. Mid does tempt away a Viking, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to win outright. Bongkure is going to pull those tanks back. He does have a recall in his back pocket and more units on the production tab. Meanwhile, back home, that third base is almost done for mid. More barracks are going down. Two eagles just sitting there staring at each other. And the bat still somehow alive, keeping an eye on things. Recall does go down, and that partnered with the tank's ability to repair themselves while their next two buildings is going to make them virtually invincible for about 8 seconds. They're going to take free shots on mid's army. It looks like Bongkure is going to be able to hold again with more units coming down the ramp. Mid, though, does have his third up and saturated, so Bongkure is going to have to find a way to balance the scales a little bit. He can't continue to be this far behind in economy. Perhaps researching some tech could be the answer to some of those woes. I know that he does have at his disposal the Tornado rune for Berserkers. He does have the Attack Posture rune for his tanks, turning them into siege tanks, and Ambush for snipers, which makes them just very annoying, constantly permanently cloaked unless they're actively taking damage. Mid going for a fourth though, smart move I think. Also researching some runes of his own. Nothing groundbreakingly dangerous, just a lot of quality of life improvements, increasing the survivability of that army. Natural healing is a big one that I'm seeing a lot of top players use right now. We'll see if it comes into play. But basically, if you've got an army full of damaged units, you stash them somewhere on the map and they'll just constantly sit there and heal themselves. It's pretty nifty. Rather than researching something, it looks like Bongkure is going for his tier 3 mana gate research building. My assumption is he has Mirror Shield and wants to activate that for his swordsman. This is one of the best runes in my opinion, especially versus bats. Bats will kill themselves before they can kill a swordsman. It's pretty crazy. Looks like mid wanted to set up an attack on the right side of the map, but Bongkure also coming up the right lane is going to sniff it out. Going to take care of that Hellgate before the minions spawn, which means that this fight is going to tilt heavily into the favor of Bongkure, who is currently ahead in supply, and considering he's on less bases, that means he's definitely ahead in army supply. This is the type of value I was talking about earlier that's going to help Bongkure get back into this game. Mid still rallying troops. This is where I would think about turning around and regrouping. And Bongkure is going to put down a recall here. We'll see where he brings this army. It looks like he's going to go right off here to the side on the high ground. Mirror Shield activated for mid. Mid's going to continue muscling right into this. Even with recall on cooldown, it's going to be tough pushing up this ramp. I would definitely consider turning around right here, and it looks like that's what mid's going to do. Vikings, though, are going to be able to chase down a few units from behind, stunning them with their axe. This was not a very good trade for mid. We'll see how it plays out in the future. He's got scouts down, making sure that Bongkure doesn't go for a fourth, so mid is still ahead economically, can afford to throw his army away once or twice, but this could easily snowball in the opposite direction. And I think Bongkure knows this. He's got scouts out on the map. He just won a big fight. He's ahead in army supply. He needs to make mid pay for the greed. Shifting over from the right lane to the left, it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen. Mid, though, has already built an army. is going to come down to defend. Bongkure splitting off some of his army off to the left. It looks like he's going to try to get a little bit of a run by with those swordsmen and a Viking. Nice spread of the tanks here, not allowing them to clump up. He hasn't been able to research the attack posture yet, but they're still getting pretty good value. Reinforcing troops coming from behind. Those swordsmen did get into the mineral line. They're going to start killing workers, and even if they all die, it's important to remember that mid is on 4 base economy, so all this does is really even the economy, and I think that the castle will stand. Mid's just going to have to remake those workers. Shouldn't be a problem. He's got the bank to do it. Bongkure, though, coming in with a second wave of troops. He's going to try to push up this ramp, see if he can finish the job. But the last swordsman of Bongkure on the high ground goes down. He might want to think about recalling here, and it looks like that's what he's going to do. I think that's the only army that he has left, sending his units home. Back across the map, though, Mid does put down a Hellgate. He's going to easily kill those swordsmen and start killing these workers. Mid also has swordsmen in the third of Bongkure. This is going to put a huge strain on his economy. He does have enough tanks and swords to defend the third. He's not fighting with those workers at the natural because the minions should start timing out soon, and he needs every little bit of minerals he can get. He's also sending troops in to help reinforce, transferring workers from the main into the third, but Mid is already knocking on the front door. Many dragons coming down, some swordsmen, some wolf riders. This may be the beginning of the end. And if it wasn't bad enough, Mid has already taken a 5th, already taken a 6th, started a 7th. The bat from early game is still chilling, making sure that Bongkure doesn't expand that way. I don't think it's going to be enough for Bongkure to hold on here. He uses Recall as a defensive spell, going to pull those tanks back behind the base, get a few extra shots in, but Bongkure could kill this entire army, and Mid could already remax. Glancing at the minimap, it looks like Mid has also put down an 8th at the very top right of the map, using Starvation as a true win condition. Even if Bongkure can hold here, he tempts away one of those mini dragons that are just decimating those tanks, but it's still not going to be enough. There's nothing Bongkure can do here. He can kill this whole army 10 times over, and Mid's going to still be able to remax because Mid has just about every available base there is, other than the one that the bat is still patrolling. A few shadow fighters come out. They should be able to handle those mini dragons. The tanks are actively repairing themselves as they're next to the castle, so Bongkure could live to fight another day, but again, just glancing around the map, I don't think that another day is going to happen anytime soon. Mid did just enough early game to slow Bongkure down, take a lead, and really keep it the entire game. Bongkure did great in mid game, but it just wasn't enough. This swordsman, this is the active healing rune partnered with Mirror Shield working its magic. This swordsman healing itself faster than those shadow fighters could do any damage to it. Mid is just so good at being the thorn in your side, finding out exactly where you're weak and exploiting it. Another Hellgate comes down with a single swordsman where there's no defense. Bongkure's got quite a lot of tanks and some shadow fighters trying to defend that natural, but it's definitely going to be too little, too late. Even sending this berserker over, I think all of these workers are going to be dead before he even gets there, but it also gets tempted away by Mid. Mid's going to use that berserker to kill the last little bit of Bongkure's tanks. One of the mini dragons gets yoinked. The berserker's chasing up the ramp. Bongkure, seeing the writing on the wall, calls GG. Mid just too good in the early and the late game. The bat never died. Thanks y'all so much for watching, and I'll holler at y'all next time. Later.